Hello and welcome to another talk, another guided talk from the Ultimate School of English. Of course, I am your teacher, Mr. Dan. Today, I want to focus on Unit 1, those doing Year 12 and 13, the A-Level cadre and cohort. I want to focus on Unit 1, that is for the English Language International Advanced Subsidiary, as IAL. So the unit is Context and Identity, and the paper reference is WEN 01/01. So I want to guide you and lead you in some pertinent areas that you as a candidate, you should be able to know and focus on. So as I said, the paper is Context and Identity. And we try to look at how context and identity shape meaning. The easiest way to know the identity probably of a person is through the language that they use. If I want to cut a stance of someone who is abrasive, the choice of words that I'll use will paint me to that effect. If I want to cut a stance of someone who is helpful, who is philanthropic, then I'll have to use words that align themselves to that. So that's how we identify ourselves. And also, of course, the context, the environment under which someone talks, under which someone presents a text, also matters and plays a very huge role in communication. Now, what are you supposed to do as a candidate? So there are basic facts that you need to put in place. One, you must know that you have to learn how to analyze and compare texts. So remember, we have spoken text and we have written texts. We have spoken texts and we have written texts. And of course, there are other genres that will come in. For example, in the written texts, bear in mind that the technological advancement, you could have electronic modes or genre. Yeah, so but broadly speaking, we have two types of modes, that is written and spoken. And then, of course, you could go deeper to look at different genres under which you'll come across, and under which you'll find that fall either in the spoken or written. Another thing that you'll be required, and this is point number 2, is you need to develop your understanding of the contextual factors. Contextual factors. I've paused there because this is a very important area, because when you look at the structure of the questioning, it's always like analyze and compare how the language of text convey personal identity. And then what do you refer to? They say refer to contextual factors such as mode, field, function, and audience. So you develop your understanding of the contextual factors. So when we talk about contextual factors, you are not lost. You are not lost. So when we talk about the subject, which is actually for the field, the purpose of why a text has been produced, audience, etc. So those are very, very, very important contextual factors, because communication happens within a context, and the context comprises purpose, like why am I talking to you? Yeah, like for this case, I'm speaking to you as a candidate. What is the reason? What is the purpose? It's to inform you, right? Not to entertain you per se. If some entertainment come along, then that's a bonus. But you see, to inform you and also to advise you. So that forms one of the contextual factors, for example, in this communication. And who is my audience? Yeah, my audience first primarily is you, the candidate, particularly at 12 and 13. Secondary, probably a secondary audience could be those just interested in learning English, right? Yes, and of course, my mode here is spoken because you are listening to me. Thirdly, please um, have a toolkit. Have a toolkit embedded in your mind of key terms for describing language use at various levels. Here I'm talking about the bullet number one. When you look at the structuring of the questions at EDEXCEL IAL Unit 1, they say relevant language frameworks. Relevant language framework. So whatever language framework that is relevant, you must develop an understanding of the same. So first and foremost, before even you move into the relevance of the language frameworks, you must understand and know what frameworks are there, or what pillars of language are there. Yes, we have the lexis, if you've heard of that. We have the syntax. We have morphology. We have phonology. We have graphology. We have discourse. We have pragmatics. Yeah, so when you hear such linguistic terms, phonology, graphology, the way I've mentioned, lexis, syntax, morphologies, discourse, pragmatics, then those are the pillars. Because for communication to take place, you have to use language. It's language that's employed. And then, of course, what are these armpits of language that are being employed? So that's why you have to really master phonological knowledge, graphological knowledge, lexical and syntactical, morphological, the discourse, and the pragmatics. And we shall be actually exploring this further as we move in our discourse. Also, my friends, you should explore some theories. You should explore some theories about the ways meanings are conveyed in language use. Very important, because we must appreciate some theories and research that have been floated by sociologists, that have been floated by linguists, and the attitudes that they pose to language. Very important. Other parameters that maybe you could use is the concept of register, okay, which will be aligned to the lexis and semantics. Yeah, I didn't mention semantics in my toolkit so semantics, meaning are very, very important also. So the concept of register and formality, that's the way language use varies according to situation. So if the situation 1, which is ultra formal, the choice of language and register will differ. Situation 2, which is laid back, is very informal. The register chosen will also differ depending on the situation. And that also forms part of what we call pragmatics. Another thing that you have to look at is characteristics of speech and writing, like speech as a text and spoken as a text, or speech as a discourse and spoken as, that is a speech, that is yes, and writing, that is spoken and written, right? So the features of spoken discourse and the features of written discourse, yes, and how do they differ and where do you have the overlaps? And then very, very importantly, dear candidates, you have to give this a forensic approach. Give a forensic, like you are a specialist. You are a specialist. You are not a general practitioner. You are a specialist as far as language is concerned at this particular level. So when you're told to analyze, you give a forensic approach to text. And please present the ability. Let us see the ability that you can use evidence in the text to find out who produced it, where it was produced, why, when, and for whom. Of course, it answers several of the point number 2 that I talked about, the subject or field, the purpose, audience, genre, etc., etc. So, as a preamble to this unit, these are very, very basic things that you really, really need to master if you have to perform highly. Now, okay, I just mentioned at the beginning, I just mentioned some terminologies, and probably it will be prudent that I break them. So the key terms that you'll be interacting with and you should be interacting with, for example, is the mode. So there's no way to talk about contextual factor without addressing the question of the mode, because the moment a text appears, it falls within a certain type of mode. So mode, what do we mean by mode? Mode is the type of the text, whether spoken or written. And as I said, in the spoken and written, we have genres. We have varieties of which, as you go deeper into the studies, you will find. So, for example, in the written, you can find written, but it's a speech, right? Written by a report. Written by a newspaper article. Written is a website article. Yes, yeah. So it is. So I also talked about the field. The field is the subject that the text is addressing, because speakers and writers, they don't write to empty air. They have specific. They don't write specific. They don't write to vacuums, and they also don't write for the sake of writing. They're guided by what subject are they talking about. So the field, for example, if I was to write personally as a linguist, if I was to write something, my field will be the field of linguistics. Yes, and I'll be addressing issues to do with linguistics the way I'm doing here now. And I also have to take care of my audience. So who is my audience? As I talk to you or as I write, who is my target audience? Who is my main audience, and who are the peripheral audience, right? So my main audience are, probably here in this case, these are the candidates sitting for particularly fit here. But my direct recipients of this are the candidates, and probably my students first and foremost, whom I interact with day in, day out, and I've known their strengths and weaknesses. Hence the production of this video. Sorry, of this YouTube work. What is the purpose? So you must ask yourself what's the purpose. So as you forensically analyze the text, so what is the purpose? What's the purpose of the text? What's the function? Is it to entertain? Is it to advise? Is it to inform? So go back to those functions and purposes of text that you learned some years back, and just refresh yourself, because you are going to need them, to need the knowledge in abundance. And of course, this one also will align itself to some theories that like Michael Halliday will also help you to get some functions of a text. And of course, here, what's the formality scale? Yes, how formal is the text? How formal? Like we have a formality scale, a formality spectrum, like from left to the right. Left being uh, low and right being high. So what's the formality scale? So formality scale will also dictate the type of, probably the choice of language that you'll use. Yes, it actually and how you present it for ease of communication. So the issue of formality scale was discussed by Martin Jones, an American uh, guy who was very, very much interested in the study of language. Now, when you're exploring a context, my friends, so what is it? I'll say that a text is an example of spoken or a written piece. Now, how do you explore this? How do you analyze a text? Now, simply, I'll try to break this down into very, very manageable and easy to understand. So ask yourself, before you start, ask yourself about some of this. What is it about? Sorry, what is it? Like what you're looking at, what is it? Is it, I don't want to appear, is it a mountain you're looking at? Is it a mango? Yes, what you're looking at probably is a text. Yes, is a text. Is a written text. Then number two, ask yourself, what is it about? What is it about? So ask yourself, what is the text about? Then for who was it produced? For who was it produced? And then why? What do you think its purpose? Purpose is? And then who produces? So if these questions all relate. These questions that I've asked yourself, as I've asked you guys, all relate to the circumstances of the text we call context. So if you're able to answer those questions, what is it? What is it about? From whom was it produced? Why was it produced? That's the purpose, and to whom it was produced. If you are able to answer those questions based on your analysis from the piece given, then you have actually, you are actually on the path towards explicating what we call context. And they are very, very important in terms of linguistic concepts. So the mode, what is it? Field is what is it about? Function is the purpose why, and the audience. And we have what we call tenor. Tenor is the relationship between the producer, the addresser, and the addressee. The relationship between myself with my student, that one is defined under tenor. Now, a relationship between myself and my principal or my boss, yes, that is analyzed under tenor. Now, once you have explored the context, as you can see, because what's the question? The question that analyze and compare how the language of both text convey personal identity, then refer to contextual factors such as mode, field, and then relevant language framework. So I mentioned this in my preamble, and I'll repeat it as I set the pace to work on this section. Once you have explored the context, then where does your attention shift? Now, ask yourself this question. How does the style of language reflect a particular situation? Bless you. Sorry. Now, when you have close examination of text, there are certain things that will come to the fore. The individual words used, particular words used, the letters used, or punctuations, all these will be brought to your attention. So, for example, it is an exclamation mark. You know that the exclamation mark has been applied here. Where capital letters have been used, you can see a capital letter. And some individual words that are striking. You'll also see some individual words that's right. So remember, no writer just writes for the sake of writing, as I said. And no writer just writes in a vacuum. You may also notice the appearance of the text and sentence structures. So a bird's eye view or a panoramic view will show you the shape of the whole text, including the way it begins and the way it ends. So when you look at the text, you can see the introduction, the body, and the conclusion, and that is what forms the discourse. So when you're talking at the discourse, is now the structure of the text, the way it appears, the way, like I say, panoramic view, like bird's eye view, like you put the text in front of you and you see how it has been structured. That actually gives you the discourse. Now, what are the key constituents? What are the key frameworks that you should have at your fingertips? Special terms in language study, which need to be explored and studied. My friend, graphologies, for example, visual marks on the page, the way the words are presented and the way the page looks in terms of graphics, in terms of the words that are emblazoned on the paper. Lexis, which means word choice. So here I want you to get used to, instead of saying vocabulary, you talk about lexis. So lexis, the vocabulary, the choice of words that have been used. Morphology is the word structure. And in morphology, we have the constituent words, that's the morphemes and all that, that form a word. So the structure of, remember, we also have the structure of a sentence, with the structure of a word and the structure, how sentences are structured. So the way words are structured, that's morphology. The way sentences are structured, those are, we call it syntax. So you look at syntactical and morphological structures. Grammar, the rules that govern what we call standard English. Yeah, because we have other quote unquote Englishes. So what are these rules and grammar rules? For example, there are items or things that have plural and we add s, right? And others don't, right? Like we'll say many chairs. You won't say many chair, right? Yeah. So those are some of the elements that guide us as far as S is concerned, or standard English. Pragmatics is how generally language is used, language in context, and how context contributes to meaning. Yeah, so we shall also look at that. And as I said, discourse is the structure of the whole text. And semantics is the meaning that lexis, the vocabularies evoke. So for example, if I say a chair, can I sit on a chair? Here you'll know that it's a piece of furniture meant, to be sat on. Please give me a chair so that I write properly. So in that context, I'm requesting for a piece of furniture where I can sit on. But if I say, so semantically, that is the meaning of that. But now look at this, I say, I'll be late today, and the chairman of the club will chair the meeting. Or I'll be late today, and Grace will chair the meeting. So you can see chair there has actually mutated as far as meaning is concerned. And that now, semantically, it actually connotes a different meaning, and also it explains the element of pragmatics. That is how context, like how words in context shape meaning. So in a nutshell, you will use all those the language frameworks, and you'll use the contextual factors to shape up, to bring out communication, and ultimately to create an identity of, the creator of the text, or the people involved in the text, or the characters involved in the text. So remember, as a preamble to this unit, of which I'll be now delving further onto further examples of contextual factors and the language frameworks. But one thing that you must bear in mind is that you need to understand the two broad things that you use to forensically look at this paper, forensically analyze and execute your mandate at this time, that is contextual elements, and of course the language frameworks which contribute and constitutes to the whole development of the identity of the persons or the people that have been presented in a given text. Thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button. And of course, watch out for this space as I continue producing more as you prepare for your IAL and any other exam that warrants such level of understanding. Thank you.